Hey friends, welcome back to Kitchen Wisdom. Grab a cup of coffee and settle in, because today we're diving into something that sounds simple, but trust me, it can make or break your kitchen sanity. How to store dry food the right way. And just so you know, all the tools and equipment I mentioned today will be linked in the description below. Let's be honest. We've all had that one shelf in the pantry where chaos reigns. And I'm saying this as someone who has battled rogue flour bags, sugar avalanches, and oats that somehow escaped their packaging like they were planning a prison break. It happens to the best of us. And trust me, I've lived through plenty of pantry disasters myself. In the pantry where chaos reigns, bags of flour with tape barely holding them together, sugar spilling from torn corners, or rice leaking out like confetti after a baking marathon. I've been there so many times that I could write a whole book on pantry fails. Those flimsy store bags and Ziplocs, they might seem convenient, but they never last. They tear, they let in air and moisture, and before you know it, your once beautiful flour has gone stale, or worse, invited a few tiny, uninvited guests. Once that happens, you'll never look at a bag of flour the same way again. That's when I realized I needed to level up my storage game. And that's how I discovered the magic of ball glass jars. I still remember the first time I switched from messy bags to ball jars. And honestly, it felt like my pantry took a deep breath and finally got its life together. Suddenly, everything looked tidy, intentional, almost Pinterest-worthy. But more importantly, it worked for real everyday cooking. From messy bags to ball jars. Suddenly, my pantry looked like something out of a cozy cottage cookbook. Neat rows of flour, sugar, oats, rice, and beans, all lined up like little kitchen soldiers. But it wasn't just about looks. These jars are airtight, sturdy, and built to last. And let me tell you, they come in every size imaginable. From the big half-gallon jars that hold enough flour for a small bakery, all the way down to the cute little 4-ounce jars, perfect for spices or sprinkles. Over the years, I've tried them all, but I personally prefer the wide-mouth jars. They're easier to scoop from, easier to clean, and honestly just feel more practical in everyday kitchen life. You can fit a full-size measuring cup inside without doing that awkward angle and shake maneuver. I especially love the ball jars with metal lids. The seal is strong, they never warp, and they're so easy to clean. I just toss them in the dishwasher and they come out sparkling. And here's my favorite part, labeling. I label every single jar with a black Sharpie right on the glass. When I need to change it, it wipes off with a bit of Windex and a microfiber cloth. So simple. I joke that labeling is my pantry therapy. There's something deeply satisfying about seeing everything clearly marked and ready to use. And yes, all these jars live right in my pantry, lined up and easy to reach. It makes everyday cooking and baking marathons so much smoother. But let me tell you one more little trick that completely changed my dry goods life. How I actually transfer everything into the jars without turning my kitchen into a flour snowstorm. It can get messy fast, but I have my own little secret. I use a large piping bag as a funnel. Yes, a piping bag, the same one I use for frosting cookies. I always keep a clean one ready in the kitchen, and I hand wash them after each use so they last forever. I like a 21-inch buttercream piping bag, and I snip about 1.5 inches off the tip, which creates a wide, sturdy funnel. Then I pop that piping bag funnel right into the mouth of the jar. Pour the dry goods through it, and boom, no mess, no spills, no sweeping flour off the counter for the next 3 hours. It keeps my jars tidy, my kitchen clean, and my sanity intact. Now, for my fellow bulk shoppers and holiday bakers, let's talk about my 5-gallon food grade buckets. These are my secret weapon for long-term storage. When I buy flour, grains, or oats in bulk, they go straight into these buckets. They're airtight, stackable, nearly indestructible. Perfect if you bake as much as I do or want to keep large quantities fresh for months. I label my buckets with orange painter's tape and my trusty black Sharpie. The bright color stands out, and it's easy to read, even in dim pantry or basement light. Plus, the painter's tape peels off cleanly when I need to relabel. I usually jot down what's inside and the date I stored it. Nothing fancy, just practical and easy to spot. And speaking of storage locations, I personally keep my big buckets in the basement, where the temperature stays cooler and steadier. But you can also store them in the garage, as long as your garage isn't hitting extreme heat in the summer. One of the biggest perks? Buying in bulk saves money, and having everything in supply means I'm not running to the grocery store every time I need flour for a recipe. But keep in mind, these buckets take up space. If you have the room, amazing. If not, start with 1 or 2 and build up. Another reason I love these buckets is their sealed lids with rubber gaskets. Most come with twist-on or snap-on lids that create a tight, air-resistant seal. That means no moisture creeping in, no pantry pests, and ingredients that stay fresher for much longer. It's as close as you can get to a vault for your dry goods, minus the security cameras. Between the bowl jars and the food-grade buckets, my pantry runs like a well-organized little grocery store. And believe me, that did not happen overnight. This system was built on over a decade of experimenting, failing, reorganizing, and then finally figuring out what actually works in real life. Especially for someone who bakes as much as I do, like a well-organized little grocery store. And honestly, it has taken me over a decade to perfect this system. I didn't figure this out overnight. It was a long journey of trial and error, and a few pantry disasters along the way. Glass keeps ingredients airtight, clean, and odor-free. That's one of the reasons I trust it so much after all these years. Plastic containers tend to absorb smells over time, like that's that one bin that forever smelled like onions even after I washed it 3 times, but glass, it doesn't hold on to anything. And the metal lids on my jars seal tight, keeping out air, bugs, and moisture. It's that old-fashioned reliability that I love. And those 5-gallon buckets? After using them for more than 10 years, I can confidently say they are designed for long-term freshness. They've survived hot summers, cold Colorado winters, basement storage, and my yearly baking marathons. If you live somewhere humid or you love to stock up for the holidays like I do, these buckets are lifesavers. I keep smaller jars for daily use and refill them from the buckets as needed. It's efficient, tidy, and honestly, kind of fun. Every time I scoop flour from a bucket into a bowl jar, I feel like I'm prepping for a cozy kitchen adventure. It reminds me of why I started baking in the first place. Comfort, creativity, and just a touch of organized chaos that somehow works perfectly. Now, I know what you're thinking. Does all this effort really make a difference? Oh, it absolutely does. Let me paint you the full picture, because this moment is what converted me from a casual jar lover to a full pantry storage evangelist a while back. Just for fun? Or maybe curiosity? I ran a little storage experiment, and if you know me, you know I take these things way too seriously. I wanted to see if all this effort truly made a difference. So I tested brown sugar, the one ingredient that loves to turn into a rock the moment it senses air. I stored brown sugar in one of my ball jars and filled another batch into a 5-gallon bucket. Honestly, I did it just to prove to myself that all this labeling, sealing, and organizing wasn't just me playing pantry dress up. Well, Fast forward over a year, yes, an entire year, and both batches were still soft, fluffy, and perfect. I'm talking 0 clumps, no hard chunks, no chiseling required, no sad sugar brick stuck at the bottom. It was the kind of brown sugar that practically sighs when you scoop it. That was the moment I stood in my pantry and said out loud, okay, this system is pure magic. And I meant it, because if it can keep notoriously temperamental brown sugar soft for a whole year, without a single marshmallow slice thrown in, it can handle anything: flour, oats, rice, beans. Bring it on. This storage system doesn't just work, it excels. Every month, I do a quick pantry check. Refill jars, wipe shelves, and make sure all the lids are sealed. I usually throw on some music or a podcast and turn it into a little ritual. It's my moment of calm before the storm of baking that always follows. I like knowing exactly where everything is. No digging, no mystery bags, no surprises. And honestly, a tidy pantry just makes me happy. It's like opening a little window of order in the middle of kitchen chaos. If you've been battling torn bags, stale ingredients, or general pantry mayhem, try this system. Ball jars for everyday use, 5-gallon food buckets for bulk storage, and good old-fashioned labels for everything simple, clean, and game-changing. And if you have your own system, I'd love to hear it. Maybe you've found another clever way to keep things fresh and organized. Share your tips in the comments below. I'm always looking for new ideas. Oh, and before I go, if you're skeptical, just remember my brown sugar story a full year later. Still soft as the day I opened it. You can't beat that, so give it a try and let me know how it works for you. All right, friends, that's it for today's episode. I'll link my favorite jars, lids, and buckets in the show notes. And remember, in the kitchen, a little bit of order makes a whole lot of magic.